So I was watching the South Park vaccination special, and it's like I knew that even if they did have like somewhat like, you know, anti-vax takes, I guarantee you like Comedy Central wouldn't air it. So I knew what we were getting into there. But they tried to frame it like as a bit. First off, anybody that doubted anything about the vaccine, like side effects, adverse effects, or anything, was like they're like QAnon. They would like put them on QAnon message boards, like with the QAnon people. And then at the end, and I'll spoil it because it's not, you know, anything crazy. At the end, like the way it's treated is like CVS is treated like a nightclub that no one can get into. It's all about vaccine access. Like they're like, oh, can you get in? Oh, you let him in, and it was like an elderly person. That was like whatever, funny bit. And then at the end, Bibi Netanyahu from Israel comes in a plane and just starts handing out vaccines to everybody and saves the day. So and they're like, oh, it's funny. I'm like, sure, yeah, like.
From the 5 to the 6, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane by the visit Glen Rock, need crypto told me I should bring the Glock with me. So I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. Who you with?
Well, Sarina,
bizarre.
Before I introduce you, I will say anybody who may be new to the podcast, because it's been a few months since you've been on, so please listen to our first episode with her where we kind of go in depth on your background and stuff, because I kind of want to just jump straight into the stuff today. It's called Cover Reaction. You'll check it out in our episode log, still up there. A lot of people really like that. So
it was a fan favorite.
People are like, I've been asked so many times, does she have a Twitter? I'm like, I found it, but there's nothing on there. Yeah, I was like, you know, and so God
bless your soul. Yeah, that's
don't start. I was like, you know what? Why don't we just keep her off Twitter? She doesn't need that right now, and they would have got your ass out of here anyways. But Sarina, thanks for joining us. And please check out our old episode with her before we get started. But the vaccine's been rolled out, not fully, of course. Biden says by May 1st. There will be enough vaccinations for every adult. So your thoughts?
Oh man, where to start?
Just start wherever. Start shooting. Yeah.
I think we're making a lot of big mistakes. I thought from day one that this is exactly what the pandemic was going to be used for. And not like in a planned conspiracy type of way, but just like, I'm always looking for what is the monetary motive? Who is going to benefit from any given situation? And I was predicting from my knowledge of other vaccines and how I've seen like this excessive fear mongering and hyping to try and scare people into getting vaccines, that I was like, oh, this is totally in line with that. We're going to hype up the fear of an infectious disease. And where's that going to lead? That's going to lead to trying to get everyone to take a vaccine. And here we are. And that is exactly what's happening. And so many things that I was predicting that people were like, oh, that's never going to happen. You're like a crazy conspiracy theorist. I'm like, that's literally what's happening now. And now all those same people are like, well, yeah, this is just what has to happen. And I'm like, yeah. And you called me a conspiracy theorist for it like 9 months ago or a year ago.
Yeah. 1 month ago. Yeah.
What do you got going on, Sai? What about you?
Sarina, I've talked about this before, just before all this, just how the vaccine thing is the craziest thing to me, crazier than any other, than like the factory farming or the environmental stuff or anything else. Cause it's just so, the PSYOP campaign has been so successful and it's weird. It's a combination of like the people that hawk vaccines the most, like I'm talking individuals, not like corporations or people, but they don't like really believe what they're saying. They don't really have conviction. Right. So it's the weirdest thing, but it's also almost all pervasive and everyone believes it as little as they do. Does that, I don't know, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I think you're saying like it involves maybe if you were to be, you know, pro-mandatory, let's say you're really like, I want it to be mandatory. It requires the least amount of like critical thinking on your own part.
Yeah, and
kind of.
Yeah, like what I'm
Yeah.
saying, because you could just say, okay, I'm not even saying mandatory, but even if they're just like, why doesn't anyone want to get it? That's kind of what the baseline thought is for most, even like a lot of
Yeah.
people. You don't have to have an independent thought on your own on that, is what I mean. You could have just watched a CNN special and been like, well, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Totally.
Yep.
So yeah, I see.
And the other thing I'm noticing, well, I have some new anecdotes too, you know, and fuck people that say don't use anecdotes. Like that's all we have as citizens, you know, right?
Not a scientist, that's all I can do.
Especially when we're not collecting data.
No.
But yeah, exactly. But it's crazy how people don't seem to care which vaccine they're taking. Everyone's like, it's so random. Like, oh yeah, I got the Pfizer, I got the Moderna one. And it's like, do you care that they're radically different? You know, it's not like it's just like a rubber stamp.
What is so I mean, you guys both might know, what is the difference between these vaccines? I did want to get into that. What is the difference? Is it composition? Is it dosages?
So the Pfizer and the Moderna one are actually the most similar out of all of them. They both use this new mRNA vaccine technology. And then we now have like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is very different. And then the AstraZeneca one, which interestingly is being paused in a number of countries around the world due to adverse reactions.
Is that the blood clotting? Is that the one?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's being paused at the same time that the United States media is putting an all-out campaign of like, no, those people are crazy that don't believe. It's like 15 countries are crazy.
America, fuck yeah. Like they're just doing that. Just
yeah.
America's been doubted before.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but
and what do you think about these numbers? What about the other? There's the Novavax too. There's even more. There's a
lot of others. Unlike
Novavax came
Chinese ones that are being rolled out.
What do you think about these numbers? I know we talked about this a little last time, but like I was on the Novavax came out and I looked at the media blurb and it's like, yeah, they're saying it's 96% effective against this and 100% effective against like serious cases. So it's saying it's like 100% effective.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, what do you think about
so the only one that I have analyzed in full is the Pfizer vaccine, because at the time that I was looking at it, they were the only company to have actually published and peer reviewed their data. And I'm not sure that Moderna has actually done that yet with their clinical trial data. They might have by this point. But so at the time, like I looked really deeply into the Pfizer one. So that's the one I know the most about. And I have not kept up. There is an overload of information coming out. But when I looked at the Pfizer one, I was really shocked by a lot of the numbers that they were claiming. And so like for one, the 95% effective number, that is only looking at treating symptoms and not even hospitalizations. The 95% effective is against a set of symptoms that they define, which are actually basically characterize a mild case of COVID. Like it wasn't even like they're extending that and saying to severe COVID and to hospitalizations, but the hospitalization and death numbers from that trial were not statistically significant because there were so few deaths and hospitalizations overall in both groups that they like couldn't really conclude anything. So basically that 95% effective number came from basically it's 95% effective at preventing like fever, loss of taste and smell, like basically this more mild profile. But the really interesting thing too, that kind of puts that 95% number into question. And there was actually an opinion piece that Peter Doshi, a highly credentialed, respected person, wrote in the British Medical Journal, where Pfizer didn't include all of their raw data in that study that they published, but they did include it when they gave it to the FDA for emergency use authorization. And when you look at that data, it shows a little bit of a different picture. And it shows that there were all these people in the vaccinated group that had all the symptoms of COVID as well, but they just didn't have a positive PCR test. So they weren't counted as having COVID. And that makes the vaccine look way, way more effective. But there's a lot of questions about like, why did so many people in the vaccine group have all the same symptoms and appear to have cases of COVID? They just weren't getting a positive test, so it was not counted as COVID. But like, what is that? Were those people all just randomly getting other colds that happened to look like COVID? And so that like this opinion piece in the British Medical Journal basically was like, these numbers that are in the raw data like call a lot of this 95% efficacy potentially into question if we like dig deeper than just using a PCR test. Like when you include those numbers, it looks like rates of COVID were like equal between the placebo group and the vaccine group.
And that's British Medical Journal, real scientists. That's not a conspiracy.
Yep.
That's like that's just a scientific
Got
question.
ignored by mainstream media, but it was,
And it's just stuff like that. Just like, forget about, and, you don't even have to believe as far as we do on this stuff, but just that question alone. Why is the media and obviously we know why the corporation's doing it. Though some people are naive even on that topic, but
I know.
Why are they? Yeah,
the only ethical corporation that we have.
This is Pfizer. Okay, like this is
right.
They've given more damage settlements than any corporation in human history, all while turning like a profit doing it. So it's like they've given away more money,
dropping the
hurting
bucket.
people. Yeah, while making more
dollars they've had to pay in fines for like fraud in the past.
So that fact alone is enough for any human being to say, I'm never taking the Pfizer vaccine or any Pfizer product for the rest of my life. Like that's justifiable. It doesn't matter. COVID doesn't matter. Forget about COVID. Like that's just
people cancel Pepsi for less than that. They're like, one time
I know,
like one time I had this really watered down Pepsi, and I never again. I won't drink anything. I need I'll shoot from it. And they're like, no, Pfizer.
Or even more politically, like the freaking like the rad lib that'll be all up in arms at Coca-Cola doing like coups in South America. Like Coca-Cola, as we should be, but then totally cool with the vaccines, not even questioning, like that have done equally, if not 10 times more things to the global South, and it's just bizarre. There's this weird like null space that we're not allowed to talk about when it's completely obvious in every other domain of life, when it comes to food and when it comes to advertising, when it comes to climate change and deforestation. Like we all know. Like everyone knows factory farming is bad, even if that's like a cognitive dissonance thing. This is a thing where we're just all so brainwashed on, and it's just so crazy. Yeah, but the Pfizer one for sure is fucked.
Yeah. And, and then so what about and again, you said you haven't studied it in full, Sarina, but you definitely know more than I do about this. The one shot Johnson & Johnson. That's the one I see because I do see people talking about it. They're like, just get the Johnson & Johnson, get the one shot. Everybody's like, that one's really good.
2 Johnsons, 1 shot, dude.
Yeah, that's insane. It's the same name twice, but it's the only one that does 1 shot. Makes you think. Was there ever a second Johnson? We don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, with that shot, like how does it go from other places maybe saying you needed 2 shots? How can it be 1 shot? Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, because I think the Johnson & Johnson, and again, that's the most recent one that I have not looked the most into. But from my cursory glance, I'm pretty sure that it is using a more traditional vaccine methodology, like a lot of the other vaccines that you often get with just 1 shot. And it's not using this mRNA technology. Right. It's a more traditional method. So I think that's why they're able to do 1 shot.
Okay, but let me ask, what if that's true, why is this the first of its kind that we've been able to do for coronaviruses as a group? Like why is this one? Why this year? Why not?
That's a good question. I think because they're just trying a lot harder. The excuse I've heard is the SARS outbreak died down. We didn't keep trying. We didn't, but like there's a big push and a lot of money being poured into this. So I think, and that's true with like the mRNA vaccines and all of this. I think things that did fail before with other coronaviruses, there's a lot more money and attention, and they're going to do their best to make it work. And that is what I think we're seeing happening. They are overcoming some of the hurdles.
It's the most scrutinized vaccine rollout ever. I mean, like a lot of times, because for me, this was like my first kind of like, okay, like seeing it from the thing, but with you two both, I mean, and he always tells me, he goes, it's funny when even the people who are doubting the COVID vaccine still think this is like a isolated incident, so I think it's funny that you're seeing it roll out in real time. So their eyes are all on it, like it's not like for any other, even like the swine flu or like anything like that, just any of those kind of things, the actual like vaccination or anything that came from that, like the flu shot wasn't this big of a thing, right? I don't know. It's interesting
because their plan is for the first time ever to have the entire world get this.
Yeah.
And that is going to bring about scrutiny.
I'll say. Yeah. And
that's the thing. They're playing with fire because this whole thing is a house of cards, and it's going to open people that were never skeptical before are going to be skeptical of the other stuff now too. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a silver lining kind of hope about this thing, that it's actually going to trigger a whole wave of, it's going to make it to where eventually within 10, 15 years where anti-vax isn't automatically crazy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my opinion, at least.
What's going to have to happen though? It's going to have to get really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, my take is
horrible.
Okay.
like either we kind of have two choices. Like I think either we're going to keep doubling down on the current path we're on and things are going to get more and more draconian because there's so much hype. Like there isn't a recognition of, okay, like whoever wants to get it can get it. Whoever doesn't. Like that's not how they're pushing this.
Not at all.
And so because of the intensity with which they are trying to convince everyone that the entire world should have it, the shaming and name calling they're creating, it's going to like that can only become more draconian. And then you have two options. Like either you're going to be able to convince everyone to do that and people are going to go along with it. And we're going to just end up living in some sort of even more draconian, weird society, or people are going to really start freaking out, pushing back and protesting. And I think my theory is that what it would take for this, it's not a lot that it would take for this to be toppled. Like one piece in the New York Times that credibly reports on some severe side effects and like treats the vaccine skeptical movement legitimately, like the way they used to do some of that reporting, the way they early were reporting on like Andrew Wakefield's findings and some of the autism stuff before they did a complete about face. And like, now if you question anything, you're crazy. But at first, like you used to have people like Dr. Oz, you used to have like talk show hosts and opinion pieces in the New York Times, like, oh, there were a bunch of side effects. Oh, there's this whole group of mothers that are worried about, like they at least reported seemingly objectively and gave time to the other side. And they've completely stopped doing that unless it's from a totally slanted, like critical of anti-vax perspective. But I think because like my experience is so many people I've talked to, I will share scientific studies, I share anything credible, and they ignore all of it because they're like, well, the New York Times isn't reporting on this, NPR. And but that's where I see how it actually would take very little. It would take a few high profile reporters to report honestly on the reality of the pandemic, the vaccine, like what's going on from a different perspective. And I think you'd see like suddenly like that would wake a lot of people up. But I think things are so draconian and so like you'll be fired for that. That like to get to that point where some mainstream news source is going to report realistically on this, we're going to have to see like a hell of a lot of side effects. Like people are going to have to start knowing people that have had harms so that it becomes acceptable for people to report honestly. That's my theory of like what it will take and what will eventually happen to topple this.
Yeah, I saw one. I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Berenson at all. And he just
told me about him the other day.
Yeah, dude is really like, he's like probably the biggest voice right now that's allowed to say anything. Like I think like, well, I just because he doesn't come from like an anti-vax background, but he kind of has more so my take on it where it's totally a cost benefit analysis. Like it's like if I'm young and healthy, I've seen the death rate.
Yeah.
I don't want to, and maybe and you can correct me if I'm using the wrong terms here, but I don't want to like alter my genes. You know what I mean? Like, cause that's what the science is behind some of this stuff. And I know that's like considered controversial, but I don't want to take a rushed vaccine. I mean, the thing is I have a tipping point. I personally do have a tipping point. Like I my livelihood, if it does threaten a job during, let's be real, the worst economic time that we'll see in a long time. So with that coupled in with it, I'm not sure we're going to get that pushback. That's the only problem. Like, because look, they could say like all of the, maybe not DoorDash, but I'm trying to say like all these companies here, like if you don't have it, like see you later. We'll find a vaccinated person to take your job. It's not a problem. Like,
have you been hearing that already?
No, not yet. And I work outdoors. I'm just saying I don't know if that's going to happen.
Right.
But if there's a lot of like, if we got to 85% efficacy, right? Like, which is, I think, the goal, right? So they keep saying it's different all the time. If we got, or not efficacy, cooperation, excuse me.
Yeah.
85% cooperation on the vaccine. What would stop them from like not just disregarding complete 15% of people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, you have to get nowhere near that 85 for it to really work, you know, because like I we could all sit here and hope and be like, well, I hope I'm just the 15% that doesn't have to get it, you know, and they stop caring after that. But they stop caring. That means they stop caring is what I mean. Like I've seen certain things like, these are just ideas. These aren't, I've just seen certain people say like, what if insurance companies decide to just crush you for not being vaccinated?
Yep.
Yeah. And now do they want to say no under our, you know, private insurance thing? Maybe that might help us a little bit, because they're like, no, we don't want to lose 15% of people's profits. Maybe that might help us. Yeah. But as far as how mandatory you think it's going to get, do you think it's going to get to that point? Like, or do we think we just might not be able to travel the way we want to or something?
In the US, I don't think it's ever going to be like mandatory, like government level mandatory. I think there are other countries that are already like Israel. There was an article in the New York Times that was basically saying Israel is already saying you will be left behind if you don't get the vaccine, and they're opening up stores and restaurants and malls, and you have to literally show a green vaccine card to get into any of those places. So like that is what they're already doing in Israel, and it's like, yeah, like it's creating this additional caste system over there, basically. And they have the media, of course, isn't covering the fact that there are protests.
There's no other caste systems in Israel right now.
I was gonna say, it's, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's like, all the other, because I mean, it adds on to other existing.
If you're a hot military vaccinated chick in Israel right now, you're like the peak of society. I feel like you're just like, you're like,
that's a wild. The stuff they're doing is just wild. Let's just say that much. Yeah, but no, I'm sorry. Go on. You were saying, like,
so like Israel's doing that, and I'm sure there's other smaller countries. And if you look even at the difference, like there's all these other countries that have had complete national lockdowns, and we've never had that. And obviously, like part of that was under Trump. But I think the US is large enough and diverse enough, and there would be enough pushback that I think people here are smart enough to like not even try at that level. I think it's going to come more from private businesses, from insurance entities, it's going to be all of these other smaller ways. It'll be travel, it'll be airlines. Right. And so the end result, I think, will be the same, which is you will be prohibited basically from participating in society in many ways. Yeah. If you don't want to get it. But I don't think here in the US, it's going to come from like a top-down federal government.
I see.
Level.
Yeah, it could just be like, okay. Yeah, I remember one of the first things I had seen was like Live Nation for concerts and like Ticketmaster. It was just a couple months ago, and they were saying like, look, if you don't have a negative test, they were saying a negative test or a proof of vaccination, like you're not getting into these concerts. And you know, again, in this country, I think it's a good point to say a lot of the stuff I hate about this country might actually help us in this thing. In this kind of where it's like, what if Live Nation's like, honestly, our numbers aren't hitting the same. Those unvaccinated people used to fucking love going to Jay-Z shows or, anything like that. They used to love that. So we're going to have to just soften these things. Like, whereas in a country that doesn't have as like ardent capitalism, they can disregard some of society in that.
Right.
Manner.
Yeah.
Like,
they're going to price it in. They're going to do the math and figure out how many doses they've already sold, how many people are going to get it regardless.
Charge you an extra $30 for being unvaccinated.
Exactly. Yeah.
Honestly, that's what I could see happening. Like,
or just raise the rates for everyone to cover the spread, kind of thing.
Then everybody's gonna make it mandatory, like on a colloquial, exactly in a community thing. It's like exactly.
But no, it's gonna be, and that's you're already starting to see the even like mainstream publications are kind of backtracking, not on the vaccine so much, but just on the whole COVID thing in general, being like, oh wow, cases are, like they're because it's not like, don't get me wrong, the pharmaceutical company is probably the most powerful industry, but it's not the only industry. And there's a lot of people in other industries that are just like, fuck this. Like we just want this economy vibe, and regardless if you have a fucking vaccine or not, so there's competing, like, there's definitely competing factions going on here.
Yeah.
And especially exactly what you said about being an American. Part of our hard-headedness is like, will help us in this respect, like, look at like Florida, it's not like they were smart about this. Like people say they were dumb, but they were just, even in the early days, they're like, fuck it, we don't care, kind of thing. And then they're like, no, but actually, and that helped them in the long run. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not like one way or the other on Florida, but compared to California, it's just so crazy how following the science just led to such shitty reward. And
and Florida's, they're saying now, the media is saying there's a rise in the new variant, is what I'm seeing in Florida. Rise in the variants. They can't say cases. Well, they can't say hospitalizations anymore because the hospitalization thing's been debunked.
Can't say deaths.
Why can't say deaths either? So it's a rise in the variant. And what do we know about variants, right? In typical viruses, is the variant usually stronger?
No.
I don't think it is. We don't.
Something
that's basic virology. That's like literally, it's.
I know that.
So there's something.
Yeah.
The important thing to point out about the variants on the vaccine as well, there was actually kind of just sort of a whistleblower. He was a person who's worked in like vaccine development for years, actually worked for the Gates Foundation, worked for Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance as well. And he just came out publicly and is basically saying that he thinks our global mass vaccination campaign right now in the middle of the pandemic is terrible, and not on an individual level. He thinks the vaccine on an individual level is still good, but he said that it's like, he kind of drew this comparison to when you stop in the middle of taking your course of antibiotics and don't finish it out, that actually adds pressure to help create superbugs. And he's saying that when you try and vaccinate people on a global scale in the middle of so many people being infected, it actually selectively drives the rise in all these new variants. Wow. And that's already what we're seeing happening. And it's just, and he said, there's no way that our science, like they're claiming, oh, well, with every new variant, we'll create a new booster, we'll create a new vaccine. He's like, there is no way our science is ever going to keep up with the rate at which these viruses mutate. And so he's like, we need to stop. Like, this is bad. We should not be mad. He goes, if you get case numbers down, then it makes more sense to try and like, he still thinks mass vaccinate everyone, but that he's basically one of the head people who's involved in vaccines and vaccine development is like, this is going to be terrible and end up causing more harm globally and drive the rise in all these new variants.
Wow.
So I was
reading that and I was like, what do you think about that theory? Do you think that holds weight?
Yeah, I mean, from what he was saying, it makes sense. And I mean, I kind of was wondering if that would happen. Like, yeah, if you start.
How are people receiving him after saying that? Yeah.
His video's still on YouTube. Last I checked.
He's like, he's an ex Bill Gates guy, right?
Yeah. Like and I mean, the other thing,
X, that's why he's coming out with this shit.
I mean, it's amazing that he's worked with some of like Stanley Plotkin, like some of the top, most well-respected, like pro-vaccine manufacturer, like, and researchers. And so, but again, of course, I just imagine how different would it be if the New York Times reported on what he was saying?
Yeah.
Like, what if mainstream media actually cared and reported? And because I just see people being like, oh, you sent me another YouTube video. Like, don't get your information. Yeah. And I'm like, this guy is like insanely credible. But like, I'm sure they would listen if the New York Times reported on it, and that's where I see that difference. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of validity to that. And what he's saying makes sense. And I think it's ridiculous to think that we would ever be able to, I mean, I thought this, aside from the vaccine, I was just like, the virus is going to mutate. Look at what the flu vaccine and how effective that is every year and how we can never even guess what strains of the flu are going to be most prevalent. Like, viruses mutate. And it's one thing when you're talking about viruses like polio or something that are largely eradicated and they aren't super prevalent. But like, if we believe what they say and COVID is everywhere, then like, yeah, what did you think was going to happen? Of course it's going to mutate.
Yeah. It's funny what you said about just the fact that like had New York Times run that piece or something. Because I the thing I see the most from people who I know don't know anything. They're not like, there's some people that are like, oh, I'm a somethingologist over at UC Davis or something. So okay, maybe I'll listen. Yeah, maybe that guy can spout whatever he wants to me. But the people I see them sharing this meme. I don't know if you've seen this meme. I'm sure it's an old like anti-vax meme where it'll be like vaccine research and it shows a bunch of people in lab coats like doing some good stuff. And then it says anti-vax research and it's just a woman on the toilet scrolling on her phone. right?
Yeah.
Which is funny because I'm like, you're not in the lab. You're scrolling on the phone on your toilet watching a 2-minute and 19-second Fauci video on Twitter, and you're like, I'm never leaving my house again. Like, you didn't do any research.
Exactly. And that circles back to, well, this guy that's kind of brings me to like a point I was having. Like, it's worse. It's embarrassing that people scrolling on their phone on the toilet are dropping facts about vaccines that the experts aren't. Like, that should be more alarming that someone is actually discovering shit on their phone.
That Del Bigtree getting nuked, like, and you know, guys like that. Just,
it's not the own that they think it is. You know what I mean? Like, like, oh, you should. Yeah, those are the people that are like, trust Fauci, the guy that's been wrong like 8 times out of 10 on, you know what I mean? It's just like so hilariously. Yeah. So
I've seen some memes, interestingly, coming from the same people, but like some people in like the disability community or like chronic health community that are still very pro-vaccine, but I've seen them sharing a similar meme that's like kind of make it like a doctor, you know, like, oh, who learned, you know, had a few hours of medical training on my rare condition versus a lifetime of me living with this condition and figuring it out. And they're kind of making the case. And it's coming from like the disability and chronic health community where they're like, I've struggled, doctors try and dismiss my concerns or say it's in my head. And like, they only had a few hours of training on it in medical school, whereas I've lived a whole life with this condition. And I'm like, oh, you're on it. Can we like now extend that over here where you're making these other dumb memes about like, you know, doctors doing research? I'm like, guess what? They didn't have much training on vaccines either. Like
or nutrition, right? Anything like that. Yeah.
Like they have a very broad, like a general practice doctor, even a pediatrician. They are not like, they don't actually know hardly any of the science. They're not taught any of the science on nutrition, on vaccines, on, you know, all these diseases. And so, someone who's spent a lot more time watching YouTube videos and reading peer-reviewed scientific literature, but doesn't have a degree, I'd trust them a lot more than someone just because they're a doctor.
Yeah, I had a doctor, like, I'm 30, which, I mean, is that old? No, but it's like enough to like die of cancer. Like you can die of cancer at 30, you know? And like, I've gone to like the doctor before and they give me like the hand on the shoulder, like, you're all right. That's like their checkout. They're like, they're good. I'm like, I haven't had a solid shit in like 6 months. And they're just like, you know, you're probably working out too hard. Just chill out, man. Chill out.
Doctors are the biggest bros, man.
And it's worse with women too.
Like they don't listen to women for shit.
So inclined to be like, oh, it's probably just stress. It's probably just in your head. It's probably just hormones. And it's like, you have no idea. You haven't like done anything to figure this out.
They used to literally diagnose women with hysteria. Like, like, what? What do you mean your leg's missing?
Look at the medical textbooks. It's right there.
I know. Hate to laugh. But sorry, derailed us a little bit there for a sec. But we're getting back to like how mandatory it is. Like I like, again, I have a tipping point. Maybe you guys don't. I think you guys are a little bit more like, you guys don't have a tipping point, correct?
In terms of like, would I get it?
What would it take for you to get it, to get Jay and Jade up?
Knowing what I know, nothing. Yeah, there is no. I don't think there's a tipping point for me. When I'm actively taking steps, prophylactics to not get viral respiratory diseases, or if I do get them, to nip them in the bud and make sure they don't kill me, which is relatively easy if you're 99.99% of the population, even old people. Like, you know, you can live in a way where you really don't need to fear every virus that comes out, you know, and especially COVID. And but I mean, if I didn't know about vitamin D, I'd probably, and I was old as shit, I might take the vaccine if I was 85, you know, one of them. Right. It's like it's like a roulette wheel, though, you know, you might get some side effects. And the other, but even that, though, is like, so that's giving huge leeway towards their data being correct in their percentages where they didn't really study old people. Right. And it's the immunity produced in
they are now. People.
Yeah.
A live study.
Yeah. Too little, too late. You know, it's like, but it's like where the immunity produced by old people from these vaccines is not as strong as young people. And that's also why young people have more side effects. So it's just like it just doesn't add up. I think it's largely useless personally, you know, which is why I don't fully like that guy is allowed to say, and I do like agree. He probably is right in his thesis of, you know, this might drive more variants and stuff, but he's allowed to say, he's still on team, like, we should vaccinate everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
If he's smart enough to figure out
Yeah.
that and this might drive variants for the global population.
He was like, "Can I have the cool take this time?" They're like, "Fine, go."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's like, "Fine, you can do it this time."
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just skeptical of all this shit. I'm so black billed on it. I'm burnt.
Yeah.
What about you, Sarina? What about you? Is there anything?
I mean, I want to say yes and no. Like, I want to say no. I want to say
make a case for both. Make a case for both.
I want to say there's no tipping point. Like, I want to say over my dead body, you know, like because some of it is evidence based and some of it is just I don't trust the pharmaceutical industry, and I am inclined to believe that a lot of our interventions end up doing more harm than good. And that I'd much rather take a risk with potentially getting COVID. So it doesn't really matter how effective it is or not, because I think that they likely, we don't know what the long-term risks are. There's no way we can know that. We won't have a placebo group. We may never know that. Like I just don't have a lot of faith in the system and who's developing the vaccines. But I'm also like, I'm 27 and I don't know where this is going. And I love traveling. There's things I want to do in life. And so like, I don't think I would, get it for a job per se, but if like, I can't travel even state, like if things got so draconian where I would never be able to leave the country or never go to a conference or like do anything.
Yeah.
I'd like to say I'm going to be out there like protesting and trying to overturn that system. But what if it goes on 10 years? What if things just get more and more draconian and everyone goes along with it and it doesn't look like there's any hope of taking it down? At what point am I going to be like, fuck it, I want to live life. Like I'm going to need to take this risk, you know?
I think it's fair to say. Yeah.
So I want to say no, that I have no tipping point. And I really, really am going to do everything I can at this point not to get it. Mm-hmm. But I can't predict the future, and hopefully I have a long life ahead of me and I want to do stuff. So who knows what I might end up being willing to do. Yeah.
No, it's interesting because I always like to find out how married to that belief are you? And it sounds like deeply, right? I'm not saying it isn't, but how far will you push it? Because I want to find out how far everyone will push it. Because it can't just be just you. It couldn't be just you like, hey, I don't want to take it. And they're like, well, that's fine. You're one person. We can discard you from society. It's not you probably wouldn't even make the news. But it's if everybody is like travel, damn, let's go. You know what I mean? Like if it was like that, which honestly I think is what it's going to be. I think once this lockdown's been so rough on people, just mentally and everything. I think people are just like, look, if that's the finish line, fuck it. Mm-hmm. So and part of me can't blame them.
I mean, like I think the more people that say no way in hell, the more people that push back, the better.
Status of those people too. It's gonna if an actual for me, I'm hoping NBA players, a lot of them, because they're set. I'm hoping a few of them maybe a couple top 10 players in the league where you have jersey sales tied to them. Attendance when they're not playing is dismal,
Or the tennis player, I don't know.
Djokovic. Yeah. He's the best tennis player in the world too. Yeah.
I think last I heard, he said he wasn't going to take it. And if that meant he couldn't play, then so be it. So I would love, I think the more high profile people that do that, the more people are going to be like, well, we can't lose these people or so I want people to push back. I'm going to do my best to do that. Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. If the world goes even crazier than it already is,
I'd still find a Dr. Nick from The Simpsons to give me a fake green card.
That's my take on it. I didn't want to say it, but that's my take.
I'll say it. That's going to happen. And if that's the case, I would
need a based doctor, dude. Just somebody with a awesome.
I'm not getting a jab in my arm. I'm sorry. It's like I'm an adult. I'm not getting, I was vaccinated for the whooping cough. I was fully vaccinated for everything. We're all in the vaccine generation, have more vaccinated than anyone else. And I got whooping cough as a teenager, and it was the most frightening experience of my life. You literally feel like you can't breathe, like you're going to die, and it hung around for a month. It was crazy. And
I had whooping cough too.
Yeah.
Very different experience, but
Yeah, and it's like, oh, did no one told me that? No one offered me intravenous vitamin C, but you look at that research and that's super promising. Like we can nip this shit in the bud for 99% of people, just like, and then you have real immunity. Then you have real immunity is more valuable. That's the other thing is like vaccine immunity is virtually never better than real immunity. And I've had COVID. I'm pretty sure I've had COVID, early on. And it's like, come on, like if and I'm one of those people, I don't fully believe in the whole thing like you can catch COVID twice. I think a lot of that's I think that's very, very rare, and a lot of that's largely bullshit. Could be wrong on that. But the thing is like if you can catch COVID twice, then what the fuck is a vaccine going to do compared to regular immunity? It just boggles the mind that these basic questions.
Well, I'll just say it was a variant.
We're going to get a booster shot every year.
That's
exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So we have it. So we have a thing where we're in some place like in New Zealand and stuff, we're locked down forever with zero COVID, but then these variants keep coming. So it's like at some point the rubber's going to meet the road, right? And you're going to have to decide, are we going to open up and do this whole booster shot thing? Are we going to admit that it's just like not that serious and that we're going to live with it? You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's multiple falsehoods that are poking through in every direction that kind of make it, we're going to have to square this. People are going to try and square the circle with this thing, at some point. But I don't know.
I just wanted everyone to know. I mean, because I think it's valuable when, somebody's saying this, especially if there's a listener, it's like, whoa, what are these people talking about? Because, it makes it a more human, because people really have this perception of like, the anti-vax. I don't even like using that because I'm not against production of them. I'm not even against production of them. I'm not against anyone getting them. I honestly I wish they had more data. Like you said, I wish they were able to make that decision through critical thinking and not just be, scared into doing it. I don't think that's ethical. I don't think that's good or anything. But I mean, to me, to say anti-vax, that would mean like, I think like, there should just be nothing, and I don't agree. I can't say I do.
Yeah. And that's the thing about most anti-vaxxers, quote unquote, is they largely know more about the prophylactic side of things than the average person in terms of like they know about the intravenous vitamin C and whooping cough, and the pharma bros hate that shit. They completely dismiss it out of hand or say it's pseudoscience and stuff, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, are you on a team or are you trying to stop diseases? Because even if you're 100% pro-vax, why not do the whooping cough vaccine and do the intravenous vitamin C if you get it, but no one ever talks about that. And the whole, it's just crazy to me. That's the craziest thing. I'm 100% Joe Rogan in that take of like, I'm just boggling my mind that there's not even like a sizable subculture that's able to talk about this in the media or even amongst doctors. You know what I mean? It's still considered fringe to talk about vitamin D, which would, how much of a joke this pandemic would have been if everyone was vitamin D. I know I talked about this in the last podcast, but it just boggles my mind. We're going to look back on this time and be like, you guys were doing all this shit, but not like taking the crucial nutrient, that your fucking immune system needed, it's like that it's gonna be crazy, or aliens looking at us now, they're like, what the fuck are they doing, So but I wanted to ask Sarina about you met RFK-J, right?
What?
Yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I recently watched
he got canned from Instagram, right?
Yep.
And Facebook and YouTube. Yep.
I watched he was interviewed by Theo Von.
Damn Kennedy.
I know. Yeah. Oh, he's the only cool one. He's the best. He's the
JFK Jr. is Q. So I mean, the kids were up to some crazy shit.
Yeah. But he was on Theo Von's podcast. I guess they're friends or some shit, which is like,
why, of course. Yeah. Why wouldn't he be? Yeah.
Which is awesome. Like it was an awesome episode.
Theo's based, dude.
Yeah. But what was that like, Sarina? Was that?
It was cool. I mean, I met him and Del Bigtree and Andrew Wakefield.
Damn.
And he gave a good speech. I mean, didn't really get to talk to him a whole lot. He had lots of people wanting to talk to him, and but he seemed cool. He seemed chill in person, and was a good speaker. Yeah.
Insane.
Cool.
That's cool. No,
I used to, what was Andrew Wakefield like? Because I used to be one of those guys that was like, okay, I'm anti-vax, but that guy's still crazy,
He was really nice.
Yeah. And I've kind of fell into that whole thing. And then I started to I was like, is this guy legit? Like, if for some reason I believe that he was like, because I'm like into the GMO thing, but there's a lot of like sketchy anti-GMO people that I'm like,
right.
no, I'm not like you. And I thought he was one of those guys, but like, he's cool? Like, is his?
I mean, I thought that a while ago. I mean, like, look, like I was into the vaccine thing like way before there was ever even a discussion about autism. So like when I would talk to people about vaccines and they'd be like, oh, do you? And I would be like, oh no, I'm not even talking about autism. Like, I don't like, I didn't even talk about that because like I had other issues that had nothing to do with that. And that's kind of a newer version of like the anti-vax movement or whatever. And I was skeptical at first. And then I read I read an investigative piece that was kind of showing his perspective and countered his whole story. And I looked at both sides. Like I read the so-called investigative piece about like why he was this terrible person and all of this stuff. And I looked into it, and then I read his response to that and some of the counter arguments. And I found the counter arguments much, much more compelling. And so I think he has been completely wrongly smeared by the media. I think he is an incredibly kind and caring doctor. I mean, not anymore, lost his medical license. But he was actually like the most personable one out of all of them. Like he mingled with the crowd the most, was talking to lots of parents where I was, more so than RFK and more so than Del Bigtree. And he seemed very genuine, very nice. And I didn't get anything but an impression that he's really just trying to do what's right.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
So
before we move on to some Bill Gates talk, do you have anything, any other nuggets on the vaccine before we move off of it? Just anything you want to say? Because we're taking a hard pivot to another thing, so I didn't want.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to think. Is there anything really important? I mean, there's so much information about the vaccine, but I mean, I think there are some very serious potential long-term consequences. I'll add this. The one thing in particular that we haven't really heard about is there was some talk about at the beginning, the antibody dependent enhancement response, that like once you got the vaccine, if you then got COVID, potentially having a worse case. And this was what held up the development of the SARS vaccine back in like 2003, when they were testing it in animals. And then they infected the vaccinated animals with SARS, like they all died. They had such a bad reaction. And it was this antibody dependent enhancement. And we haven't done a challenge trial with the 3 vaccines that are available in the US. So they didn't really test that. And obviously there are people that have gotten the vaccine now who have also gotten COVID or been exposed, and they haven't seen that, but there's some evidence that happens when your antibodies and immunity levels start to wane, like 3, 4, 6, 8 months out. And that it's at that point, if you've been vaccinated, generated the antibodies, and now your antibodies and immunity start to wane and you get infected with COVID at that point, then you could have a much more severe reaction to COVID with this antibody dependent enhancement. And we're not far enough into this mass vaccination campaign by any means to like really know or see that or have any long-term data on that. But I've seen some people basically raising the fears that they think there's going to be a lot of people that are getting really, really sick, potentially dying as a result of this mechanism that we know about with some past SARS vaccines and mechanisms that we didn't really test for explicitly in our rushed trials with this current one.
Crazy. So that's just some
risk to be aware of.
You can't state that claim, because that's what people who are so like pro-vax will just be like, you just made that claim, you don't know yet. And it's like, well, you don't know yet.
I don't know.
None of us know. I hope that doesn't happen. Like, exactly. So that's interesting. But we talked about a little bit of Bill Gates last time. We're going to talk about Bill Gates this time, but not for anything that has to do with vaccines. Bill Gates, Cy and I had an episode on it not long ago, but he did become the largest independent owner of land, of like farmland. I want to say it was 242,000 acres that he's accumulated for good stuff, I'm sure. And so what I'm also seeing is, and I'm sure these two have to be correlated, but what I'm also seeing is that he's got this big fake meat thing going on, right? And what I hate about that is that I see a lot of people thinking that vegans are like super in on that. They're like, yeah, no, that's the society I want. Every vegan I know hates Bill Gates. Like, no, not every one of them.
You know, cool vegans then.
Yeah, that's true, because there are some. There's a class issue thing here. There's a class society where there's the I have a $3,000 Whole Foods order every single day, and I drive a Land Rover vegan. That person probably knows Bill Gates, and then then you get the based, hippie vegans that are like, no, I don't like anything that guy does. And so I hate the fact that that's considered like that's what vegans want. Maybe some do. So you guys can clear me up on that.
Some do.
Well, Sarina definitely. We got a link to her video she just made on this. But I just gotta say,
drop it in the description.
Just before you go off on that, Sarina, I love the idea of like Bill Gates. It's like, yeah, I did this Microsoft thing and all this humanitarian shit, and I'm just gonna retire to the farm. And his farm is like half of America. It's just gonna retire to my farm. It's just like fucking like he just bought all of it,
bulldozing some indigenous guy's house. I'm calling it quits.
Yeah. Dude.
Oh man, it's ridiculous. So I do know a lot of vegans that are totally jumping on board and like celebrating Bill Gates as some sort of vegan hero. So that's why I said, some cool vegans, because like I definitely see the two that
I know I'm talking to right now. But no, there's a couple. There's some good ones, but I have like more construction, like blue collar guys that are like vegan, and they like have already awesome based political beliefs. So
so I think some of the vegans that are most, I feel like, kind of into Bill Gates are the more animal rights, the vegans coming from an ethical animal rights perspective before health, before environmentalism, which is a lot of the vegans I know. It's definitely like a big piece of why I'm vegan, the primary piece. Like I'm one of those people, but I'm also not reductionist in my approach. So it's like, while I care about animal rights and I'm vegan for that, that doesn't mean I'm going to like ignore everything else I care about, like health and environmentalism and corporations and all this. And I think that's a lot of what's going on. So there's all these people that are like, we just have to save animals, anything for that.
Doesn't matter why. Yeah.
Right. And so that's where you see these people jumping on board and saying, Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, lab grown meat, like, oh, this is going to save so many animals. And then veganism is not about our health. Like, I don't care about our health. I don't care for these, like, it's going to save animals. And they're just like focusing on that one thing above all else, which I absolutely care about. But I'm like, we also have a solution that can do those things and is good for our health and doesn't support Bill Gates and giant corporations. And that's just called like healthy whole plant foods.
A consumer, you want to attack the problem at the consumption stage, right? Like more so than the like just overhauling production to just,
Well, and so, I mean, the other issue is a lot of, I think a lot of these people are operating off of a myth, in my view, very explicitly. So like the Good Food Institute is probably like the largest nonprofit sort of, I'm not even going to say plant-based because they're doing a lot of lab-grown meat stuff, but they're like a very well-known among many vegan circles, think tank nonprofit that's funding and researching lab-grown meat as well as plant-based meats. And I think they are receiving funding, not directly from the Gates Foundation now, but from Gates's energy, whatever the subsidiary energy venture capital fund he started or whatever. They're getting money, like a lot of money from that. So they're like pretty connected to the Gates Foundation, and like a lot of vegans are holding them up, but they are operating off of this idea. Like very explicitly, they've said this. The founder of that group has given a TED talk, and we actually went to the same college. Not sure that's a good thing, but and he basically has this whole premise that, ethical activism, people trying to change hearts and minds, trying to educate people, that doesn't work. That's never worked. It's technology. It's the free market. It's having these alternatives. And so which it's like, I look at that and I say, now which perspective benefits who? Like, oh, animal rights activism doesn't really benefit any corporations. Thinking that technology and free market solutions is the way to move forward. Oh, well, all these corporations can capitalize on that. So like, no duh that's a much more popular approach that like, but yeah, so basically their whole thing is we've been doing activism forever. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. You know, we need to change the supply chain. We need to just revolutionize meat, make it better, make it lab grown. And then we never have to change consumers' perspectives. We never have to change their minds. We never have to do any of that. We'll just, you know, swap out factory farm meat for industrial lab grown meat. And it's all good.
And how do you lab grow meat? Like, how does that, in no way, because I mean, look, I understand how, like, you know, a lot of meatless, like a burger patty, I understand that could be from black beans, that could be mushrooms, quinoa, things like that. Very tasty stuff. But how do you lab grow it? Like, what is the component of it?
Yeah, so the lab grown meat, they're literally taking cells from like a cow, for example. They'll take like muscle stem cells and grow them like in a petri dish. And there's a lot of technological hurdles that they're still kind of trying to overcome right now. They've made it, but it's incredibly expensive, to make a very tiny amount. But basically they're taking some muscle cells from animals, growing them in a petri dish until they have enough of it that it's literally like they're growing a piece of flesh, they're growing a steak. Right now, they haven't really been able to do things like grow a full steak. They're much better at growing like a whole bunch of clumps of cells that they can mince up for like minced meat or like things that aren't quite, you know, they're not. So there's a lot of things they're trying to do, but basically they're literally taking cells, growing them in a lab and turning that into, I mean, it's biologically, it is meat. It biologically has all the cholesterol, all the saturated fat, all the animal protein. It's just taken from some stem cells and then grown in a lab.
Is that vegan?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, as soon as you said stem cells from a cow, I'm like, so that's less vegan than like the other ones that's just made of like black beans. And,
they're totally different. Like, it's not plant-based. It's not the Impossible Burger. It's not like a highly processed vegan food. I do not think it is vegan because you're still exploiting animals. And like the way that a lot of those cells are being grown, they're being grown in a medium called fetal bovine serum, which is a whole industry on its own, but also kind of a slaughterhouse byproduct that's like literally baby cow blood. So like that's what's being used to grow these. And yet I know a ton of vegans that are like, but one cow could make 1,000 burgers or two.
But that's not the argument for being vegan. Yeah.
Right. But that is the argument. Like, and there's a lot of vegans that are like investing in supporting this. And I'm like, yeah. So like I said, depends on who you ask. I don't think it is because you're still exploiting animals. It's still animal flesh. And like, sure, it might reduce the number of animals, you know, but like, it doesn't fundamentally address the root issue of like killing and using animals. So I will never be supporting buying or eating that. But there's other vegans that are and claim it is vegan, and
what's weird, I'm super fascinated to see how this is going to play out. This is one of those things I'm really not certain which way is going to go. I'm the same way. I'm never eat it, you know. The thing is, the reason I'm still vegan plant-based is because I just don't crave meat. If I did, I'd probably eat meat in spite of all the other shit, because that's what everyone does. They just do what they want to do, you know, at the end of the day. And like ever since I went vegan, like I have tried meat on maybe like I could count on one or two hands since I've been doing this for years and years and years, just to kind of see out of curiosity. And every time I'm just like, nah, you know, it's just not. And so it's like, I feel like what would happen. And also, well, it's interesting. I think there are stimulant and addictive properties in animal products, you know? And so it's going to be one of those things where if a lot of people went plant-based, a lot of people that go plant-based, even for a month or two just to try it, they never go back to eating the same amount of meat they did before.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Whereas I feel like this is like a stopgap and even if you convince everyone to do it, it won't get to the like biological cause of it and stuff. But also I'm not saying it won't work. We very well might see a world where this takes over and they'll figure it out and make it cheap and it'll just completely eliminate factory farming. I'm not saying that won't be possible.
I'll tell you, as a meat eater, if they get the taste right, no one's gonna care.
Yeah,
well, and
totally.
That's their argument. They're like, we want to compete on taste and price and convenience, and we'll just swap it out.
Nobody is that. A lot of what I think vegans get wrong about a lot of meat eaters is that like they love when animals get killed. They're like, no, they just don't care. It's two completely different things. There's some guys that love hunting and love the like carnage of it and stuff, but for the most part, they're just like, no, that tastes delicious.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, and I love it. I love a steak. I love a burger and stuff. So I if they get it right, I could say I'd taken off. And if it's cost effective for restaurants, if it's cost effective for this, which why wouldn't it be, right? I don't think Bill Gates wants to make it some niche thing. He wants to make it anything Bill Gates does. He wants to be the norm. That's the problem with the guy. And what I found was crazy about it all was in the new stimulus package, he got, what did he get? $3.5 billion or $3.5 million?
What is up with that, dude?
Yeah, just in there. Fauci gets $1 million from Israel. We still haven't talked about that. Fauci just gets $1 million for science. That was all it said. Just appreciate the science, man. Thanks. Yeah. Like he fixed your gutter outside.
Bill Gates,
like,
how is that, dude? You're supposed to be poorer when you give your money away. That's the fucking grift. How could you be that dumb? You know, where you just like keep giving my money away and it's just net worth just keeps increasing. It's like, come on, man. It's like, how is this not patently obvious?
Yeah. I mean, like I think lab grown meat is coming. Like I don't have any doubt that it is going to be on our shelves and in restaurants soon. I do not think it's going to like end slaughterhouses though.
No, you could use the same thing. You could use it for the same thing. Yeah.
Like I don't think it's going to end factory farming either, because when you look at some of the companies that are investing in this, like Tyson and some of these large companies, they're like already getting involved in this. But when you look at their internal documents, when you look at what they're saying at like industry meetings, they're like literally telling their partners in meat and meat processing, like, oh, don't worry, we're just trying to diversify. This will be yet an additional protein source. Like we'll have plant-based proteins, we'll have real animal stuff, and we'll have like these cell-based lab grown. They're like, but don't worry, like we're still, and they're like actively trying to say like, and so I don't think like when you see what Tyson's saying, they're not getting into this thinking we're going to switch to this instead. They're thinking like, we want to profit off of every market. We're going to have plant-based. We're going to have this. So I don't even think like, I think it will be just yet another option. It might take over some of the market share. I don't see like it being given up completely, because there are a lot of people too, like it's probably not the average person, but there's all these people that are into like local, organic, you know, like real natural meat, and they're never going to eat lab grown stuff. They're going to eat their locally hunted, killed, whatever. Always over this lab grown stuff. And so like I don't even think it's going to be effective. It might cut down on some of the growth into like, you know, the population growth and meat consumption, but I think it's just going to be yet another option. And like the bigger concern I have too, from an anti-corporate perspective or whatever, I think this is similar to GMOs, and there is GMO technology and what they're actually doing to grow some of the cells in the lab. I think this is another venue for more corporate control of our food supply. Like rather than going to the like locally grown, let's have people invested in their own community. Now it's going to be like, we're growing your meat in a lab, and it's this proprietary product that we can't tell you what's in it, how we're doing it. You'll never be able to make or, you know, this on your own. And I think it's just going to further consolidate power and control of our food system with a few corporations. So like I definitely, so that's part of why I think like the Gates Foundation and all these corporations are investing in it. They don't care about climate change. They don't actually care about animals or any of this. I think it's just like, oh, wow, this is, you know, a great way to get more vegans on board with GMOs, for us to capitalize on their compassion and ethics and movement. And
Bill Gates has a card from McDonald's that gets him a free meal at any McDonald's in the world. Like they literally gave him that. That's his favorite restaurant in the world. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
I didn't actually know that. That's
and
crazy.
Warren Buffett, those two have like they always do like photo ops and like McDonald's
So
and fucking
stupid.
and Dairy Queen with the blizzards and shit. They're like, so we're
I
rich,
saw
but
the
we
Dairy
eat poor
Queen
food too.
stuff.
That's their whole thing, you know.
Oh my god, yeah, but didn't
Yeah.
Bill Gates still
It's-
didn't know how much a gallon of milk costs? Like, get out of
No,
here.
dude.
Yeah,
He's got
exactly.
the card. They give it to him for free. They don't. He doesn't even look at the price. Dude.
It's
He's
true.
just like-
Yeah, I don't pay for any of it actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. They gave it on the house. Put it on my tab. Put it on my
Yeah.
tab. But
They got
what
the
I
McRib just for him. Like they could be
Yeah.
6 seasons out of a McRib, and they got him in the freezer for him. Everywhere.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He's like at a private reserve. He's got to go in there and tap the counter 3 times.
Yeah.
What I found funny too, just even tying it back to what we were talking about before, was I saw this really funny Twitter exchange the other day, and it was Elon Musk responded to a journalist, and he said basically the journalist claim was that it sucks seeing vaccine misinformation on the internet. Now my 87-year-old dad and 73-year-old mom are refusing the vaccine based on Facebook stuff, right? That was her claim.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk responded and was like, it's kind of wise for, elderly and immunocompromised people to take the vaccine, but there is some debate about the second jab. There's quite a few negative reactions to that. He said that. Right. Mm-hmm. So everybody jumps on Elon Musk and is like, Elon, you don't know anything. You don't know anything about this. You're not a scientist. And then one guy goes, well, neither is Bill Gates. and everyone's like, yeah, but Bill listens to the scientists. And it's like, well, then why is it important for him to say something about it? Why can't the scientists just come talk? Or I mean, even not that would be any better, but I think it's very funny how we can never apply that logic to Gates. Like Gates now is science. He is the CNN science guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's
totally.
a
like, why are we interviewing him about vaccines all over? Like, just because he has a lot of money. Like that's, I mean, that's why.
It's what America is. It's the richest guys allowed to tell you what's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's an oligarchy. I mean, it's always been that way. And I think we saw like a whole civilization within like 1 year last year. We saw like the whole like rise and fall of a civilization like happen in like fast forward, like on a time lapse. And like these are the guys that are going to try to rebuild society. And it's kind of scary. Like I think they're going to do it with that. Like there's already talks Fauci today on climate change, climate lockdowns. Or something. I don't know. You must not be familiar. It was just happened today. Fauci was on. Let me make sure I have it right.
He's the lockdown king, man. He's
got it on lock. Yeah. So actually, and this will be the last thing that we do today. I'll just play this clip verbatim actually, and let's go. And we
more and more viruses like this. The biggest lesson you're going to take away to prepare for the next one?
There are a couple of lessons, Chuck. There are lessons domestically. There are lessons public health-wise, scientifically. Let's take global to begin with. We have to have a better global health security network of interconnectivity, of communication, of transparency, so that we are talking to each other all the time and know what's going on. We also have to have a continued investment in the science. If you want to look, Chuck, at the success story in this terrible year has been the extraordinary, unprecedented advance with the vaccine, where, in January of 2020, we started the process, and 11 months later, we had a highly efficacious vaccine going into the arms of individuals, which is going to be the answer to this, together with public health measures. So keep the science up, continue to support the public health infrastructure, and remain global in our interactions. As I've said so many times, a global pandemic requires a global response.
And that was, and just for reference, that was after Chuck Todd said that there are going to be new pandemics that come from it because of climate change. So we're tying in all of these things that the Gateses, the Faucis are warning us about into one thing. So,
Jesus,
what do you guys think? It's nuts. Damn Fauci. Fauci, $1 million from Israel, and he's He's not like, this isn't even like a money grab. This is like a new institution for them. Like, this is just like, this is going to be wasn't just like, oh, let's see how much money we can make in 2020.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't going to be like that. He's already getting ready for pandemic 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
Not even, if they already got 2 and 3, like, oh, we got the contract tracing down for all that kind of stuff. And I just
Like
wish
Fast and the Furious series, they're like, they got
Exactly.
But we're not
workshopped
like
out.
actually addressing any of the root causes of pandemics. We're not addressing gain of function research. We're not addressing factory farming. We're not like that's, you never see Fauci talking about that. You never see Gates talking about, like that's, those systems need to change. Those systems are probably what's going to drive these future pandemics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, climate change may be a piece of that too, but like I think the much bigger causes are our industries and human driven actions and stupid things we're doing. So you really want to prevent future pandemics, try talking about those things.
He then also said that 3 feet is an acceptable distance now. So he cut the social distancing in half.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So 6 feet was never a thing. That's what that means now. I hate when people don't realize like that's what that means. That means 6 feet was bullshit the whole time.
Yeah. So like, where's the science? What?
2 masks, right? So that means one. I mean, all right.
So is the 3 feet with 2 masks or just
that's true.
for everyone?
Each mask you could knock down 3 feet. Yeah. Then you could kiss somebody if you have 3 on. But it's nuts. Well, Sarina, I appreciate you joining us. Did you ever launch your podcast or no?
Getting ready to. I think beginning of April. That's my plan. You can. I have a link to a page where people can go to sign up to be notified when I launch it.
Very cool. Yeah.
So I can give you that link. But
please, send it to him, and we'll put it in the description. Yeah. So we appreciate you joining us. And don't stray too far because I swear we're gonna need you probably in another couple months. So
yeah, anytime.
All right. Well, this is Rare Candy Pod. We're at Rare Candy Pod 1. He's at Crypto Sci. I'm at Glenn Rockney. Sarina, hope you have a good rest of your day. I hope all the listeners do too.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Bye, guys.